always knew it's about to happen to you. You'd leave now.
Some consider these traits to be toxic, such as undesirable in the men of today. We consider these traits such as these not only to be desirable, but to be appreciated and celebrated. Welcome to the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, hosted by and La Reina Creole. Welcome to the safe space for the toxic male.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to my Twitch channel. I'm Reina Creole, and I've got my co-host with me in this beautiful colors. How are you, my dear?
I am well. How are you tonight, Lorena?
I am doing well. So glad to be here as always. So we appreciate our toxic male viewers and toxic female viewers as well who love our toxic men.
Mm-hmm.
It's just great to be here. Absolutely great to be here.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we're continuing on with the terminal list, right?
Actually, we're kind of putting a pause on that. And yeah, interestingly enough, because Culture Casino actually did a video on YouTube I want to say about a week or so ago. And it was something that really caught my attention. And, here on the show, it's like we talk about toxic male, we kind of put it in quotes. And I've noticed when we've done a lot of like watch parties for Indian movies over on my channel, I've seen some comments like, only in the West is toxic masculinity a problem. And then some folks were like, what do you mean by toxic? It's traditional male values. And I kind of had to say, that's kind of like the inside joke with us, because over here in the West, unfortunately, I would say a concerted effort, or possibly like the past decade or so, traditional male qualities have been demonized as toxic. And there are those of us out there who don't take too kindly to that, and in a way have kind of appropriated that term to say, yeah, we have no problem with this so-called toxicity. However, again, this interesting article that I came across that we're going to talk about is that Amazon apparently has a little issue with these toxic male films that are coming out of India, the films and TV, these shows and these films that a lot of us have found to be an absolute gold mine of entertainment. And unfortunately, you've got the same people saying how problematic it is. They did it with manga and anime, and now they're coming after Indian TV and movies.
Yeah, it really is a shame that this seems to be happening in what I consider perhaps one of the best a male appreciation markets, the Indian cinema market, probably in the entire world. We've seen such incredible stories, Lorena, and such shows of masculinity and chivalrousness, and man as the protector, as a
Mm-hmm.
father, strong masculine traits,
Exactly.
very attractive men. We've seen so many, renditions of this in their cinema. And I think that a lot of it has to do with just their cultural beliefs that men are this way. And they cherish that so much so that they're not ashamed to show that, no matter what the rest of the world may be influenced by, or may feel should be seen or should not be seen. And to think that this idea, this propaganda idea of trying to target India cinema, which probably is, and I haven't completely confirmed that with you, Lorena, but I've heard, or heard many times that they make more films there than anywhere else in the world.
That is
Um,
correct.
yeah, so the idea of anybody trying to target their cinema in any way to change what they believe to be culturally significant, I think is wrong, Lorena.
I think it's very wrong. I agree. It's very wrong. When we see films, like, for example, when we watch anime, we expect to see a body of work centered around Japanese culture. That's what we go for. That's what we like to see. We like to see it in its original form, the same way that a lot of Japanese like to see English, American movies. Prime example, Top Gun Maverick. We keep talking about it. It's done gangbusters in so many countries. Forget China. Um, that are just like, this is a kind of American movie that we want to see. And we watch Indian movies because we get to experience a different culture in a way that reminds us of the films that Hollywood used to put out. We appreciate it because it's distinctly Indian. So to say, okay, well, yours is problematic. What you're portraying is problematic according to our standards, or we'll say progressive standards, because that's exactly what it is. So we are going to actually get into this article in a little bit, but before that, welcome you guys that are watching here on Twitch. We sure do appreciate you. I see Dadman Walking 55. Hello, my dear. Says, can a dadman really be toxic? Asking for a friend.
Oh, well, I don't consider dad men's toxic at all. I think they're fantastic and
Yeah.
something to be cherished, and we love you
Mhm.
guys. So I would say no.
Yeah. Not the way that the progressives are trying to say that you are, because hey, dad jokes are delightfully because it's kind of how they are. So but so glad you're here with us, my dear. So we are going to do actually a deep dive into this article from our friends over at Bounding into Comics. And again, I want to give a huge shout out. Oh, you're welcome, my dear. I want to give a huge shout out to Culture Casino for actually bringing this up, because Culture, along with, well, we all blame Chris Gore for getting us hooked on Indian movies. Chris Gore is totally to blame, but between Chris Gore and Paulie Latino Slant, especially Culture Casino, saying, "Hey, you might want to look into this." When I saw this article, the first thing I thought was, not again.
Yeah, it does bring back some reminiscent, uncomfortable, and as far as I'm concerned, periods of time in the entertainment industry that, I'm not proud of, Lorena. I'm not proud of seeing perfectly good adaptations of books and screenplays and movie, these movies coming out being criticized, and for specific groups of people to be vilified sorely because they're looking at demographics, and that's their only factor. I mean, when I look at so much of Indian cinema, it is incredibly diverse. I mean, you remember when we were watching, what film was it? I think it was Jodha Akbar. And there was a scene where they talked about how they, and it's not the only film. I think we also saw it in KGF too, but where they talked about how they embraced different religions and different cultures and how different it was. And I thought to myself, this is the most diverse thing I've seen in quite some time. And I almost wonder if they're getting lost along the way in semantics, when in actuality, so many of these films are incredibly diverse, but they're not seeing the full picture, Lorena.
No, I don't. I don't believe that they. I don't believe that they are. And when I hear, like, Hollywood, for example, we'll say Western progressive media, because that's exactly what they are. When I hear Western progressive media accusing, like say anime of not being diverse enough, when they say that Indian film is not diverse enough, it's like, that's like saying, kind of like, why is an English film not diverse enough? It's like, why is that even why is that even necessary? To me, I'm just like, I don't get it. Is it that you don't understand the culture? Do you think that because you see so many different languages? I believe there's like, I want to say, I think there's 7 or 8 languages that are spoken in India. Now, I do know that there's a caste thing that they've been trying to get away from since British independence. That's one thing, and I can kind of understand if that's where they were going, but that's not where they're going. So when they say this whole diversity and inclusion, what they're really trying to say, and what they are saying, is that you don't have enough women in front and behind the camera. And as such, you're just not with it. You're not with it. You need to have more women to succeed. And what I don't like is, again, this emphasis that just because a certain gender is put into the mix, that's what they call diversity, that all of a sudden that equals success. Whatever happened to merit?
Exactly. This is so critical. What we're seeing here is, perhaps the most successful movie industry in the world, being criticized for, not because their work isn't, not because their work is substandard, not because their work is cheating people, but because it's someone else's opinion that, it's not what we think you should be doing and the way you should be running your business. Even, your business practices are poor, and yet the quality of what they're producing is high. And a lot of it stems, Lorena, as both you and I know, and I'm sure many of the people watching this um, on Twitch and on the replay are aware of these odd quota rules that have been or have been proposed to been put in place, may or
Mhm.
may not have been put into place. And these quota rules are essentially causing a bunch of problems, mainly because what ends up happening is that the goal of expanding diversity isn't exactly achieved in what they hope for. You want to expand diversity, perhaps, let's say without the rules, but you also want qualified people doing the job. And
Exactly.
you shouldn't have a situation where, that demographic is pushed stronger than a person who is qualified to do the job. And clearly, Indian cinema knows exactly what it's doing to make successful films.
Exactly. And we're actually going to look at two before we start deep diving in this article. Of course, we remember KGF Chapter 2, right?
Yes, yes.
Right? This is a Canada film. I believe hopefully I said that right. I mean, we did a watch party on your channel for
Yes,
chapter 1. We did a
yes,
watch party on my channel for chapter
yes,
2.
yes.
And you should have seen, especially for some of our Indian viewers who are watching this, you should have seen how many of us who are Americans who are just like, this reminds me of Rambo. This reminds me of Rocky. This
Yeah.
reminds me of The Godfather. I mean, just the way that we were just fascinated by this movie. There's no way you could tell us that this was substandard, because all we kept saying is this is leagues ahead what Hollywood is doing. And all the special effects, like our jaws were dropping. We were just like, you know, this is absolutely an amazing freaking piece of cinema. And then it's like, how come Hollywood can't do it, you know?
Yeah, this is something that a lot of people have been wondering. And it's not that people don't want to see epic movies, which has been an argument that we've been hearing a lot
Yes.
from so many levels and sides. I still see some members in my family still watching these epic films. We talked about Ben-Hur and a lot of these biblical stories, but also some prison breakout stories, or things like what's that show about where they're on the prison in South America? It's not Pygmalion. It's but the point being that people will watch these epic films that were made from 50, 60 years ago, guys, and they will rewatch them because of the quality of what they are getting. And a lot of times it doesn't necessarily matter if it was a 5 million budget or a 50 million budget. No one cares about how much was spent on the film. What we care about is a great story with great actors who can go ahead and it's the film was called Papillon. I don't remember why.
Oh, okay. I'm glad
But
you found it because I'm like, which one is it? So
it's Papillon. Lorraine, do you remember this film? It's about these men who were put in a prison somewhere. I believe it was in South America. Of course, it could be off the Canary Islands, so I apologize. But the point is that it was a film made in the 1950s with an incredible storyline. And, it couldn't have cost that much because they were just in one place. It doesn't matter how much is spent. We want good quality stories. The story about these men in this prison was captivating. It had an epic feel because they were there like almost for life. They didn't know if they were going to get out. We want stories that have a certain level of intensity that this Indian cinema seems to be capturing, but our everyday, day-to-day movies that we're seeing coming out here in the Western world don't seem to be capturing that.
Exactly. They really don't. And to go back to, things that have been captured, RRR. I mean, this film, it's true. It's like it wowed international critics and audience. All American films are lame now. This is the best thing in the world. How many times are we talking about when we had the watch party for RRR on my channel? People were like, Hollywood used to do this. How come they can't do this? This makes so-and-so look lame. You're just like, no. They said, they said Marvel, I hope Kevin Feige's taking notes, for what's going on. Hey, Mary, she says no from work. Thank you. Says can't stay, but I dropped you in my Discord. Well, thank you so much, my dear. I appreciate that. I will see you later on tonight on the Babe the Menace on my YouTube channel at 8:30. You want to definitely come out for that. We are going to have a grand time tonight, my dear. Thank you for being here. But yes, this movie, word of mouth, and I'd heard about it from Chris Gore and I'd heard about it from Culture. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But what really made me press play on it was when Mark with the C from the Dark Council, said, I just saw RRR and this movie blew my mind. It is the most unapologetically, he said, unapologetically male, but basically toxic male movie that I've ever freaking seen. He said, men not afraid to be men, brotherhood, all of that. He was just like 3.5 hours. I was blown away by this movie and hadn't seen anything like that in a long time. And it kind of eventually spread. Abunas was like, all right, maybe I'll see it. Fatal J was like, okay. But as soon as they saw it, they were just like, this is the best thing that I've ever seen. And it was a movie about two men, like a brotherhood bond. And it was just like a film that did not make you feel ashamed to be a man. It made you feel ashamed that if you can't like live up to that level, but all they did was just rave about that. And I'm just like, okay, so if they're raving about it, I definitely have to see what it's about. And sure enough, that's exactly what this film was.
Mm-hmm. And Lorena, the photograph that they have of RRR, which we're looking at on the screen right now, certainly does reflect the passion in RRR. Even this feat where we're kind of seeing, what would be the impossible. But I always say that if a film can make the impossible enjoyable, then it's worth watching. We do not care that they cannot hold hands in that position the way that they're holding hands. We don't care about any of this stuff. What we care about is the fantastic story that we were given, his search for his sister, the love that he has for his sister, and this passionate story between these two men who don't realize the story that's unfolding between the two of them. It certainly was a joy to watch with some incredible effects, especially the ones with the animals. And you and I both kind of like,
God, yeah, that was I was not expecting that.
I mean, it just really entertained us and, just lifted our spirits. And truly, this is the type and level of entertainment value we're looking for. And it is achievable. It is achievable because they are producing films like this in India. It is achievable. So we know it can be done. They certainly didn't spend as much on this film, as the typical Marvel film, right, Lorena?
No. But the story, it was, you were just, the story was so captivating.
Mhm.
And the effects, just the icing, just the icing on the cake.
Because I think even in this scene when it takes place on a bridge and they're kind of swinging underneath and they have to do this to save a child who's on the other end somewhere.
Yes, surrounded by fire.
And as unbelievable as it is that they can both hold on to the rope on one hand and grab each other's arm on the other, we don't care. This film just lifted our spirits so much. It just felt so good. I almost would even say, it's, yes, we give it artistic license, but honestly, I'd like to think that they found superhuman strength at that moment. You know how sometimes when people lift up a car, somebody's underneath it.
Yeah.
Maybe they found superhuman strength just at this moment, and that's why we were able to get this spectacular scene in RRR. And we are wondering why. Why would anyone want to mess this up? Why would anyone want to meddle or throw a wrench in this delicate machinery of a fantastic, group of film producers who just love making cinema? They love doing this stuff. You can tell they love it because the love is in these films.
Absolutely. And now you've got entities like Amazon saying, guess what? You're not diverse and you're not inclusive enough. So that's a problem. So I love this opening line. The same woke virus that has affected the American film industry with diversity and inclusion propaganda now has a new target, India. Now, this shot that you see right here, this is what we're talking about. Spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it, but don't worry about it. So this penultimate scene where they're ready to go get his sister. You see this truck just goes barreling in, and you're thinking, oh, okay, they're gonna blow something up. The tarp goes up, and all you see are all of these animals and Beam here just jumping out, and we're just like, oh my God, I haven't thought of seeing anything like that.
Yeah.
And people were just cheering and freaking out. They're like, that's like expectations subverted in a good way. We thought we were just going to see just an explosion, but they went this way. And we were just like, man, how come Hollywood can't think of doing something like that?
It makes me wonder and question a lot of things. And, I think that, having Hollywood bear the burden of these sort of ideas that has not suited them well. Perhaps taking over the entire industry wasn't necessary. Why not take a certain portion and focus that portion on that idea? Give it a test run first before you get rid of these seasoned, experienced PA, who work, these production assistants who do all the little things that you need to make a story work. These screenplay writers and television screenplay writers who know how to make things come together and make sense, especially when it comes to characters speaking to one another. We know in day-to-day interactions, Lorena, what that's supposed to look and sound like. And with these sort of quotas that were being pushed, we're kind of losing that because it's all artificial. None of it is real. It's a forced narrative that we all know doesn't reflect any real life on Earth. That's why it doesn't come across as believable. That's why it's failing. I don't think India would even touch this idea with a 10-foot pole. And I hope that it doesn't become an issue where they use this as a reason to block Indian cinema here.
I hope not. But in a way, it seems like that's what they're trying to do. That it's like they're kind of like testing the waters to see just how much that they can get away with. And like we were saying earlier, and that her brought up, is that this has been going on for quite some time over here in the West, where places like Disney, NBC, Netflix have mandated diversity and inclusion quotas and officers. Okay, so they have someone to check that to ensure progressive hiring standards in front and behind the the camera. So they're so focused on, these diversity and inclusion hires that they're not looking at experience, they're not looking at merit, and it's showing in products that are just subpar. For example, David Zaslav, now that he's head of Warner Brothers, he's been disappearing projects left and right, mostly built around this whole D&I thing, which is like, no, it's not going to make us money. That makes no sense, and just getting rid of it. But unfortunately, there's too many of them that are out there, and we as the American audience, we can see it. We can see that it's just a hot mess and it doesn't work, and we're looking for quality entertainment. That's why most of us, especially in the streaming platforms, we've been looking at anime. We've been looking at Korean drama like Squid Game.
Yes.
That blew up. Indian films, stuff like that. We've been looking at what international film and television is doing, and we're gravitating into it because we're not getting it. We're not getting it here. But to kind of get here to this next paragraph here, it says Amazon Prime Video. Let me blow this up here. Working with Indian media consulting firm Ormax Media and Film Companion has released a new report that targets the lack of diversity in Indian cinema, especially women on screen. The report took into consideration over 100 films and 50 series released in 2021 across 8 Indian languages: Hindi, which of course is the one that's most spoken, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, Punjabi, Bengali, and Gujarati. That looks diverse to me.
It's really diverse. So many different cultures. It doesn't even necessarily represent every single religion or practice there just by looking at the languages alone. Certainly it's very diverse group of people. So, and cultures and religions, you can't get much more diverse than this. So far, all the films that I have watched of Indian cinema have always had women in them. I have not seen a single Indian film that did not have any women in them at all. So I'm just curious as to whether they're doing bean counts. It's like, okay, you have a cast of 100,000, maybe there was 2,000 women, or I'm not quite sure how they got that number. But to be honest with you, it's an unrealistic idea of thinking that you're always going to get diverse hires, because you're going to mainly be going by people who are the best qualified. And we're not supposed to be picking people by the way they look unless we're casting a role in a movie, which we will do that at that point. But outside of something like that, when you're looking for PAs or people in the crew or craft services, you're not going to go, I have to pick a different craft services. Sorry. No, you're going to go with the one that has the best service and
exactly
it's into their schedule and yours and things of that nature, or someone you've worked with that can handle a certain type of film. Like, for example, if you had a superhero film, you'd want someone who has experience in that. If you have a love story, maybe you want someone who has experience in that, or an epic style film like the Cleopatra one that may or may not be being made. You'd want someone who knows how to make films like this. You certainly wouldn't want someone who's never done that kind of work before. And we're seeing a lot of times people being hired, not just in movies, but in comics, in television series, that don't have that experience to do the job.
No. But I'm just still stuck on this whole lack of diversity.
Yes.
I'm stuck on it. Because I'm like, if you're talking in terms of cast, and I guess in terms of appearance, I will say that I've noticed that Telugu and Kannada films seem to be much more representative of the variety of skin tones that are available there in India. But that seems to be that particular genre. Bollywood is a certain genre. And I went to college with a girl from India. She was actually darker than me. And she was like, you don't see girls like me in Bollywood movies. I'm like, really? And she said, she said no. And I remember her telling me that, and the issue she had was just like, I watched it, but I don't see me. Didn't mean that she didn't enjoy it. She's like, yeah, I watch it. But she said, I actually liked watching American television because you seem to have everybody. And this was like in the 90s. I mean, watching, like the Cosby Show, watching A Different World, which seemed to be real popular with everybody. So it said, I can see that point, but they don't bring this up. Instead, they start focusing on the idea that you have to have women in front of and behind the screen. So to kind of get to this next paragraph here, per the report, out of the 56 theatrical Indian films analyzed across languages, not one was directed or edited by a woman. The report continues to complain that only 10% of senior leadership roles in major media and entertainment houses were held by women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's the problem?
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, it doesn't have to be. So I don't understand I'm not outraged.
No, I don't understand why gender is the deciding factor. Like here, okay, so like in Hollywood, so to speak, they'll talk about, the lack of women on a project. You need to have more women in front and behind the camera, and that's going to fix things. Not necessarily. There are some women directors who suck.
Yes.
And there are some women directors who are amazing. Female directors who have been around for the longest time. Like one of my favorites, one is Deborah Chow.
Yes.
She's really good. To go even further back, another one of my favorite directors is a woman named Mira Nair.
Yes.
Remember her? Okay, she directed Mississippi Masala, and she directed a beautiful film called The Kama Sutra, which is one of my favorites.
I love that film.
I have that on DVD. I need to have that on 4K because it's just absolutely gorgeous. But she got hired because of how good she is. And it's merit and has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do that, it's her gender that makes the movie, better. I mean, I could see if, like, say it was something like Bridgerton. Yeah, you might want a female director for that.
Yes.
But just saying, because that's the audience that you're going for. You may have that, but if it's a man who can actually do a better job, then I really don't see the problem with this. But it just seems like they're trying, and this is just me. It seems like they're jealous, or we'll say progressive Hollywood is jealous, that these Indian films are making money and getting bigger American audiences because they are just being themselves. And there's certain values that they have and that they show in these films that Hollywood doesn't want to admit this, resonates with about half the country.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'm kind of curious about is in regards to, I don't really know much about the demographics of India, let's say in respect to how many women there are to how many men. And, we know that they have billions of people in India. I mean, we all know that. It's not a secret. Yes, they have billions of people, but how many women are there compared to men? Do the men outnumber the women in that country? I'm guessing they do, Lorena. And, in that particular case, I mean, that's fine to have more men than women. And it's fine for anyone who is talented to be directing a movie that is successful. This is what we want to see. I don't care about the gender of the person who's directing the film. So I wonder if the focus on this is misdirected because they're not focusing on talent versus what the person's gender is. And, I think we can.
Okay, it's interesting. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I wanted to look before I forgot, but you brought up a very good point. you were asking, I don't know the specifics, but are there more men in India than women? Now, according to the Washington Compost here, and this is from 2018, so I'm going to kind of believe it, in China, which I know for sure in China they
Yes,
do.
China, yeah.
In China and India, men outnumber women by 70 million.
Yes.
Both nations are belatedly trying to come to grips with the policies that created this male heavy generation. Okay, so it is what it is with that. So I can kind of understand that. But at the same time, I'm not seeing like misogynistic behavior in a
Mhm.
lot of the Indian films that we saw, like with the KGF, Rocky, he idolized his mother. Everything he went through, he would go back and he would think about what happened with his mother. Even when he was in the car with this girl he's trying to impress, and she's just like, "You were just disgusting, and what makes you think you're be with you, and you're so full of yourself?" And he sees this young mother who's obviously very poor, and it's just her and her little boy, and she like accidentally drops her bag, and like the piece of bread falls out on the ground, and there's no stop signs or anything, so people are like literally almost about to run her over, and Rocky stops the car, and it's like, why are all the other cars stopping? He's got a gun pointed outside the car. So
Right.
people are like, okay, we're not going to mess with this. And he gets up and he walks over to her. And he was just like, when I was little young and like on my own, I'd shine shoes all day just for like a piece of bread. And he gives it to her. And he says, a mother is the strongest soldier ever. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. And it's just like, that really hit me. So you mean to tell me that that's a problem because the director is a man?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And I keep thinking about the film that both you and I watched and we reviewed, Joda Akbar, which
Mhm.
of course is about a woman, like the although a good portion of the film focuses on the emperor. The
Right.
story is about him falling in love with this beautiful woman, and
Mhm.
by doing this, he's actually unifying two different cultures, so to speak, or more or less, bringing them together and showing that they embrace diversity. um, you know, uh, Certainly something that was, I don't even remember which century this was in, but it was quite a few centuries
I
ago.
think like the 14th century, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So certainly there isn't an issue of the idea and understanding of what it means to be diverse in, let's
Mhm.
say, the area or areas either in India or the areas surrounding India. It
Mhm.
certainly isn't a novel idea for them. And it certainly isn't, an activity that they haven't engaged in for, I guess, millennia, maybe even, if not hundreds of years. So I think that they don't need anyone telling them that whether or not there is or isn't a lack of diversity. And I also think that it also, what's interesting about this, even when they decided to say that they used the Bechdel test, I have no idea where that test is from or whether it's a Western test or a European test or whatever it is,
Mhm.
it does show a lack of variety when it comes to using tests. In other words,
Mhm.
you would want to use more than one type of experimental test as a benchmark, and then see if the p-value is significant. So I question this report in regards to this, and I don't think that 100 films is good enough to make a determination, because Lorena, through the years, you and I have seen other Indian films which were not translated into English. Let's say
Mhm.
they were in one of those 8 languages, and there were plenty of women in it, and they were all love stories, men and women together. So clearly, despite the women being outnumbered, there's a strong desire for men and women in India to see
Mhm.
men and women cooperating together on screen. So I question the idea of this inclusivity in a sense, While it's true they might have ticked off all the boxes and said, yes, this person, we don't have this person behind the screen or whatever, that's something they can do on the side. I don't think they should go ahead and tamper with the heavy talent that they seem to have already, in this delicate machine of Indian cinema.
Exactly. And I don't think they say using such progressive metrics. It's like what we were talking about. I want to see which metrics they are. But this Bechdel test, which I heard thrown around but never quite knew what it was, apparently it tracks whether two female characters have a conversation about something other than a man.
Oh, you mean when we have to talk about all that other boring shit and we can't talk about men, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when they
how's the weather? How's your mom? How's your kids? What about so and so? Oh yeah, look, it's the village idiot. Oh, you're talking about a man. That's
so it's essentially this entire show is like fits the Bechdel test because we're talking about men, right?
We would fail that.
Oh,
like,
right.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, we'd fail it.
We would be the perfect example of what would be a failure according to the Bechdel test because we talk about men so much. We would be considered a failure, like a bad metric.
A very, 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 even though we're two women and we run the ship.
That's right. That is very true. That's very true.
Wow. Maybe that should be a new t-shirt for us. Toxic male appreciation. We fail the Bechdel test every week.
I love it. I love that. I love that so much. Something to think about. Certainly. A new way to create our merch. And we fail the test and are proud.
Yes, proud. We wear that F proudly. But this is just something else they talk about. Only 55% of the film and series passed the Bechdel test. In the promotional trailers, women only had 25% talk time, with 48 titles allowing 10 seconds or less to female characters. Again, what are you going for here? I mean, that seems to be a problem to me. That's like a prejudicial test. You're saying, well, if they talk about a man, nope, you fail the test. As if in order to be successful, you have to have women not talking about men for most of the time in the movie. Can you imagine if you flip that on its head and it's like, is it a film with men in it and they don't talk about women?
It doesn't make any sense. I don't think I've ever seen a film where, even if it was predominantly men, where they didn't talk about women, except for maybe Glenn Ross. And that's an exception to the rule, which was originally a play. But honestly, Lorena, I think it's a sad day if there isn't some dialogue about men and women talking about men. I think it's very sad. And it kind of goes against what they do culturally, because a lot of their beliefs is preparing for marriage and picking a partner. And picking that partner, you're going to either speak about a man or a woman. So if you're a woman, you're going to be talking about a man. And if you're a man, you're going to be talking about a woman. So you can't get away from that in this culture. It's so important to them, and a tradition that has stayed in place, no matter how the rest of the world continues on. They have held on to that tradition, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It's a fantasy thinking that, what is probably, in their culture as the woman's most important day, that they should be shocked that they're even talking about that is alarming. They're not taking into account the cultural significance of that conversation.
No, they're not. And to kind of draw a parallel, one of the most popular series on Netflix, and we did a watch party for it, is Bridgerton. What is the main subject matter of Bridgerton?
Finding a husband.
Exactly. That is the whole plot of the thing. And I believe that's like is it the most popular streamed series on Netflix? Yeah. Granted, it's produced by a woman, Shonda Rhimes, who knows what she's talking about. But yeah, Total, and that's why there's so many of those period dramas that are popular in American movies and television right now, because you don't have to deal with any of this crap out here. I'm sorry, honey, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. You're absolutely right. That is why they are popular, and that's why we're looking for those romances. That's why Jane Austen, who wrote it in her time, it was popular, and that's why I'm sure if the Jodha Akbar story is popular, and if we keep going back and back generations in many cultures, we're going to find that this is a popular theme that resonates and continues to resonate pretty much through practically every single culture in the world. So it's almost as if they're saying that they don't care for something that really is rooted in what makes us, earthlings.
Which reminds me, you got to watch Persuasion on Netflix.
I haven't watched. This is the new one with Dakota Johnson.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I will watch. I will watch it.
It's actually, God, I love Austen. I don't like Bronte, but I like Austen.
I love Jane Austen.
I do. So next paragraph that they have here, where they're talking about streaming films and series scored better than theatrical films across all parameters, indicating the ongoing change the sector is ushering in female representation on and off screen. Representation of female. I have no idea what HODs is, and you guys didn't explain the acronym in the article. You got to do that first. In streaming films and series was 5 times higher than in theatrical films. Similarly, 64% of the streaming series and 55% of streaming films passed the Bechdel test, while more than half of theatrical films failed it.
Is it head of department? Head of department or head of development, HOD.
Oh, you might be right. Yeah, that would make sense. Head of development.
Yeah. So streaming companies are, and they're many of the streaming divisions and many of the streaming companies are relatively new, right, Lorena? So
that is true.
10 years, 15 years ago, we didn't have this, kind of competition of streaming services. We had Netflix, and you had to get the discs and have it mailed to you in those days. So now it's very different, and new hiring practices, I'm sure, have come on board. So I'm not quite sure whether it's necessary to even name or even try and compare, a streaming service, CEO or department head to a studio department head. I don't know whether that's fair or even a realistic comparison. What do you think, Lorena?
I agree. I don't think it's a fair comparison. Usually with streaming services, their budget is much, much tighter than a multi-million or close to $1 billion dollar film. And most of the films on streaming that have been so popular with audiences here in America had theatrical releases. So they had much more money to deal with. With these streaming services, again, with, the restrictions, I'd say, with the DNI restrictions that are going on with respect to streaming services, that's cramped things even further. So of course I believe they're going to have much more adherence to this quote unquote, Bechdel test. But what I would ask is, how popular are those streaming series? I know I personally haven't stopped to watch any of them. I haven't heard any of these series recommended to me. I think the only Indian streaming series that I've watched is actually, this is funny, reality show called Indian Matchmaking. You got to watch that on Netflix. That show was a trip.
Yeah. I almost feel like we should do a watch party of that, but
yeah. It's funny. I used to love 90 Day Fiance, and then that kind of got boring, but this one, yeah, you can blame me, Paulie, for getting you and Romy hooked on Indian Matchmaking on Netflix. So that show is hysterical. But I've never watched the series, have never really been interested in the series. The films seem to be the ones that hook me. So the fact that they're saying whether or not something passes or fails a Bechdel test, it's of course, it seems those streaming series are much more poised to pass this obviously biased test where it's based on, if women talk about a man. I mean, if you talk about your son, does that qualify?
Gee, I don't know. What I do know is that I gravitate towards films that have men and women in them, especially if in the story a woman is either talking about a man or talking to a man, and
Hmm.
where the women are discussing men. So I gravitate and films that have sex in them. And of course, we're not going to see that in Indian films, but
No.
that's okay because they already have romance, like to the level of, like a flower is blooming romance. So, I think it fulfills a lot of fantasies in a sense.
Hmm.
Um, but the idea that they feel that it's important to stress this on a culture that emphasizes discussion of, men by women, it sounds incredibly uninformed and just overall disregard of their cultural practices.
I agree. I agree. So this gentleman here, Shailesh Kapoor, founder and CEO of Ormax Media, this is the people who did, the quote unquote study, says that the report should be a wake up call to Indian filmmakers to make their content more inclusive to women.
What?
So, this report should be a wake up call to Indian filmmakers to make their content more inclusive to women. Because
No.
that indicates success. I mean, I don't see the pull here.
I don't understand the reason why that statement is significant.
No, I
What,
really I
like
really
what you
don't.
said, like, does it ensure success? Is it because, you know, um, I don't believe that what's the way the things are now is wrong. So it's not a question of right or wrong. It's just what this individual may prefer and created a report to say, look, I was right. This is what I prefer. Now do it. And I think that if he were the one who was in charge of all the studios, he could implement whatever policies he wanted to. And whether it would be successful or not, who's to say? But I don't think this type of implementation I also think that it's very unhealthy in regards to the creative process. Essentially, what they're saying is that they don't
Mhm.
want women talking about men, and I'm not for that. I think that's a huge mistake. I think that's quite an error, in my opinion.
Totally. Especially when you think of nature of women. Yes, I'm going to generalize here. We're much more, emotional. Like we like talking about men, at least we do. You know, other things that are associated with men that we'll talk to. If you want to, let's face it, point blank, sex appeal sells.
Yes,
It just does. Would you really think that we would give RRR a second look if these dudes did not look as ripped as they did on the promotional poster for it? I don't think so.
I
That
don't think
taps,
so either.
yeah, it just taps into, oh man, I have to go and watch that. They know that there has to be some kind of relationship or love story that's in it in order to hook in female viewers. They did it with KGF. Part of it was the relationship with his mother, and the other part was the woman he fell in love with at the same time. That Rocky did. So those types of things do appeal to women. There are female characters that are in that. A female character that I believe she was one of the cabinet ministers. I believe the prime minister in the KGF part two. So I don't understand. Again, I don't get it. And we keep talking about this. Why is making it more inclusive to women, just putting women haphazardly in front and behind the camera without any kind of merit, somehow good? Or are you saying it's good because you want to keep the money flowing from Amazon into your projects?
Yeah, I think that doing a report like this, because first of all, a report wasn't needed to tell us these facts. This was
No.
something that they already knew, because in their country, as I said, there's 70 million more men than women. So men outnumber women in that regard. So that wasn't something that was a shock. Um, using a Western test, because I somehow, I don't know whether this is a Western test or not, but I don't think this is probably even the first time that this has ever been researched in India. I don't believe that this is the first time anybody's ever thought or addressed this issue in India. I think that it was something that's been addressed by the Western world towards India, and India is responding in this manner, saying that this is the result. But I just can't believe that this isn't something that has come up in India, because they are so intelligent and they believe in philosophy, and they have a culture where they debate. I just don't believe that this isn't a topic that came up before. And they said, okay, whatever their conclusion was is whatever it was. But I don't think they need anybody to tell them something that they've known all along, or have a report to show that. I
Mhm.
almost wonder whether they just agreed to do this and they can still get away with this without even thinking about um, whether they're going to make any actual changes in their work, because I just don't believe that they would do anything so drastic as to get rid of half of cast and crew to reflect a demographic that somebody else wants, and something that doesn't, isn't really even culturally significant for them.
Yeah, I don't to me, this makes no sense, but it also didn't make sense when the same thing started creeping into anime and manga. They're saying you need to adhere to Western standards, you do this, you do that. There's too many toxic male characters being shown on TV, and it's like it's crept in over there, even crept in with some of the video game companies. And over here, we're just like, no, do not let that come over there. So some of the companies and, anime houses over there have been outright flicking rejecting that. It never has come up as an issue at all, except for you have these regressives in Hollywood who think, again, Hollywood is a bubble, as we all know. Everybody thinks that they're great and the rest of America is just flyover country and stupid. And they feel like, you should do the same, you should do the same thing. In India, it's like you should adhere to our standards. But I honestly think that if movies like RRR and the KGF and a bunch of them who have been getting a lot of steam and press off the streaming services, if that wasn't happening, they wouldn't pay attention. They wouldn't pay attention because there's so many like anime and Netflix branded anime that's coming up. That industry makes a ton of money. So it's like they want to tap into that. But I agree. It's like it's insulting to the Indian filmmaking industry that it's saying that there's something wrong with your product because it doesn't reflect what we want it to to reflect for you. And it's just insane. Like this line here, um, where Shailesh continues, he says, "We hope this report serves as a starting point for the industry to come together and discuss ways to address the evident imbalance." Why and in what industry is it that straw streaming section? Because I don't see big budget Indian movies adhering to this at all. They know what makes their money. They know. Why would they go back on that?
Yeah, they know what makes the money. They know how to make quality films, and by addressing this over the quality, it's not gonna be a formula that's gonna work for them. A lot of and also they have these incredible stars who are already well established and are popular in Indian cinema across the board. There's no sense of trying to displace or move any of these actors away. even the
Mhm.
playback actors who do the voiceovers and the singing, which they
Right.
reuse and have used time and time again in different movies, with actors essentially lip singing, but a different singer singing in these movies. It's a well defined, well perfected version of a movie that they know will work for audiences, and audiences are expecting to see that. So if they sway away from this, no matter what the reason is, it could prove to be, a bit of a failure for them culturally, because it goes against what they believe in their culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to continue on here, I think we're going to do these last two paragraphs because we kind of get the idea, but these last two are, I believe, are the most poignant in this article. Aparna Purohit, I know Aparna because I know a coworker, her name is Aparna. The head of Indian originals for Amazon Prime Video says that Indian cinema must enact diversity quotas similar to those that exist for Amazon original programming. So, what she is saying is that all of you Indian cinema, you're producing stuff like RRR, looking at you, SS Rajamouli. I'm looking at you, with Canada Films. I'm looking at you, with Brahmastra coming up, funded by Disney, looking at you. You need to have diversity quotas similar to what Amazon is doing for streaming in order to get with the times. How do you think that's going to go over, in your opinion?
I think Indian cinema will walk away. They don't need us. I think that although they want to capture the market in that way, I don't think they need Disney. I don't think they need the major studios. I think they could probably do it independently, if they can get their movies in the cinemas. If they can bypass the big studios, I kind of want them to. I want them to be independent. This is what I want. Doesn't mean it's the
Mhm.
best thing for them. It doesn't mean that it isn't going to work out some other way, but I hope they maintain their independence so they don't fall subject to things like this, which is absolutely ridiculous. No one's going to want to be involved in a project under these types of conditions. And I can understand why. I think it really should go by merit. It should be merit based.
Mhm.
I don't think people are going to be able to go ahead and provide what they're asking. And they seem to be having trouble now. They can provide it on paper, but when it comes to a practical application of
Mhm.
making a show or a TV series, it's falling flat. So, unfortunately, this fantasy of wanting to change things so that it can suit, what they think is appropriate, it has not been successful. And the test,
Mm.
that test also has proved to be disastrous in entertainment.
Absolutely. It's resulted in entertainment that is just, I'll give you a modern example right now, something that I sat through today. The first episode of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. They talked about how great it was diverse, having women in front and behind with feminine energy. And I'm just like, and this is what you get. Just no, not no, nah, nah, nah. Does not guarantee success at all, which they're finding out the hard way. But to kind of wrap this up a little bit, actually wrap us up, actually, at the end, just kind of reading further what she says when they're talking about basically this is what Amazon has done. So notice the haughtiness and tone here. This is what Amazon has done. At Prime Video, we've rolled out an inclusion policy playbook that has institutionalized certain guidelines to ensure just female representation on and off screen. These range from mandatory female representation in writing rooms and evaluating every script on specific parameters. I am certain that streaming is going to further lead the charge on diversity, equity, and inclusivity in Indian entertainment.
It's not going to, India is going to do what India will do, and they're going to blow Amazon out of the water. I'm sorry. Amazon is like a drop in the bucket. India is kind of like, the bucket and the ocean. So, they don't stand a chance to even doing anything like that. I think towards Indian cinema, I don't think they will cave in. I think money will be one of the determining factors. And I also think that the crowds in India will not go and see a film that they don't like.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. With Amazon, it's like unless you want to get American money, because now Americans know about these Indian movies and be like, is so and so movie available? It's not. All right, forget it. I'll go someplace else. And
Mhm.
like you were saying, with over in India, they're going to go support the films that they want to support the types of films that reflect the values that they want reflected. And they'll totally support that. And Amazon, their programming for Amazon is just going to go down. They're just going to say, you know what, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in seeing that, because you're right. And I totally agree with you on this. Indian cinema doesn't need Amazon.
Right.
Amazon needs Indian cinema.
Yes. Yes, they do. And I think it's going to be interesting if given the choice between seeing KGF 3 or that new film, that new film that's essentially going to be called We Can't Tell You What We're Not Talking About. They're going to choose KGF 3.
Yes, I mean, just the end when we watched it and we're just like, is there a sequel? And you started to see at the end that there was a part 3, and we're just like, yes, yes. Just
They
excited that there's going to be, there's going to be a part, a
Mhm.
part 3. But I can't see someone seeing a KGF part 3 and they're just like, nope, sorry, we got to have women in front and behind the camera, and we have to have diversity quotas and all of that. No, 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 no. They have that cinematic money. They don't need the only reason they need Amazon is just like, okay, well, we might need you to stream it to make to make some change, or basically say, you know what, we want to get American eyes on this, but you know, no big deal if we decide, if we decide not to do it.
Yes, and Amazon has that distribution that everybody wants. They can reach throughout the world, and
Mhm.
since they also sell products and video and music, um,
Right.
it's very different for them. But
Mhm.
I have a feeling that maybe not Disney, but maybe some of the other carriers. Like I don't know how well Alibaba is doing, but from what I've heard, they are very similar to Amazon, and maybe they even have. I don't know if they have a record or music section, but
Mhm.
who knows? Maybe they will take on some of these contracts that Amazon may choose to pass, or maybe Netflix will take them. So it will
Mhm.
stream somewhere. Disney certainly didn't pick up the cricket, which was a mistake, but
Dang. Yes, that was a huge mistake.
huge mistake.
I
They
thought they were all in about getting the rights to cricket. Oh man, that didn't make any sense.
Oh, I'm like, what are you doing? Buy it, buy it. Do you realize how many people watch cricket? But it's okay. I'm all right. I'm okay.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, Amazon obviously, well, we'll say Amazon Indian Originals, obviously has a problem with quote unquote toxic males being shown on screen. They want to focus on just women in front of, behind the camera. They don't want women on camera talking about a man, you
Even though
know.
it's against their culture, since that is something that they do as part of their culture.
Exactly. Exactly. They don't want a woman talking about, how proud she is of her husband, or proud of her son, or proud that the matchmaker has, found a husband for their daughter, just, or even just the love stories that they talk about, even in the Hindu religion. It's like they don't want to talk about that. It's like, why is it Why? And we know why. Why is it that seeing men traditionally as men, being unapologetically men, why is that a problem?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either, but you know what? Do not let this progressive Hollywood disease invade Indian cinema,
Yes.
because if they do, once it gets in there, it's not going to get out. And I will tell you, like over here in the US, we're like, no, don't mess with it. We like it because it's distinctly Indian. We like anime because it's distinctly Japanese, and
Yeah.
that's as mainstream as anything here,
Yes.
in
Yes.
in the US. So I can totally see Indian cinema becoming mainstream as well, because we're hungry for great entertainment that's not preaching to us,
Mhm.
that aligns with a lot of, we'll say baseline values that people have, in this country, and again, does not demonize men. Well, except for villains, because that's different. But
That's well, we're supposed
villains
to
are,
be about men,
yes.
in that regard. So, the roles that men play, and
Hmm.
also the idea of that matchmaking. I mean, it's got to be maybe half of their films, maybe half of the film is a situation of a matchmaking possible.
Oh, that is a big deal. Matchmaking and finding the right match. And I can't tell you how many love stories I've seen of like matches being, arranged marriages being made, but these other two people are in love, but they're betrothed to two other people, or they run off and get married, and the whole family issue and stuff, going on. That is a big deal.
Well, what about Hallmark? And I know this is not Indian cinema, Lorena, but Hallmark is huge and it's very popular with women.
Hey, Kay. Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. Every time the Christmas holiday season comes around, how many Hallmark movies are
Mhm,
just romantic movies?
mhm.
Like I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, or Romance for Christmas, or All I
Yes,
Want for
yes,
Christmas, and
yes.
it's nothing but
Boyfriend for
cheesy,
Christmas, husband
sappy
for Christmas,
romantic
Christmas,
movies.
whatever.
I mean, that's just it. And it's all, just this romantic. That is, well, what little plot there is, that's the whole plot. And we don't care.
We
we,
don't care, and there's always a woman talking about some guy, and it's either an ex, it could be an ex-boyfriend, it could be a current boyfriend, she could be there with her boyfriend, but then her other boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend was around, or a woman who didn't know she was going to get a boyfriend and she meets this guy, or it's heavily focused on a matchmaking end result. And
exactly.
a lot of it even goes so far, and I always kind of laugh at this, and this I'm not really laughing at the action. I'm laughing that they repeatedly use this storyline of like a woman kind of like giving up her career or moving to someplace else to be with a
Hmm.
guy. And I'm like, I love this, like it's I love seeing this stuff because it's really romantic and it feels good, and she gets the guy, and
Hmm.
and that whole thing was about that. She Another favorite trope of mine, and this is the last one, Lorraine, I promise. Girl who goes to see her family, and they have a business, whether it's like a department store or a farm or
Hmm.
a deli, whatever you want to call it. The deli isn't going to make it. The lodge
Right.
that her family owns isn't going to make it.
The
She's like,
bank's going to foreclose. And it turns out the bank manager is her ex boyfriend. And she left at the altar, you know.
and she's driving away, and he's like, wait, I love you. And she's like, you love me? And we're all like, of course he loves you. You love him too. So yeah, there is that.
Yeah, there's that. And I'll ask this, especially of our Indian viewers.
Yes.
Is there an Indian film or a movie where there's a matchmaking situation and the woman's a career girl? but they expect her to give up her career to go through with this arranged marriage. I want to know, is there an Indian film with that particular situation? Or is there a situation where there's an Indian woman who she's not, she wants to get married, but not really, and keeps leaving men at the altar? Does that happen? I want you to tell me and tell us in the comments, do those particular situations happen? Because that is the type of audience that women would gravitate to. And I bet you dollars to donuts, there are Indian movies about that are popular. And it doesn't matter who's in front of the camera. And it's full of really, really gorgeous looking toxic men.
Mhm.
I'm just saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, here. I agree with all of this. Wow, what a great discussion, Lorraine.
I know it's so fun. It was something that I just really wanted to talk about, because when I saw that article, I just saw red. I'm like, no, you can't come for it, because it's kind of like Culture was saying. It's like when we came across this Indian cinema, it was like a present. Kind of like the same way that I feel about anime. I'm just like, oh, there's that, there's that, there's that, there's that. There's manga. I don't have time to read that, but I kind of have it. Like I have my copy of Yakuza Lover over there that I still need to get through.
Who's a lover?
Yeah, I'm
Mm.
freaking loving that.
Mm.
I'm loving that. I have to watch the whole entire thing. With the anime, Way of the House Husband, that's my favorite. Somebody said I need the manga. It's even funnier than the anime. I like that. I like my shonen as well,
Mm.
but I like the romantic manga and anime out there, as well. So the same thing with Indian cinema. There's so much out there. There's like comedy, there's action, there's all of this stuff that's there. And it's so much great stuff to see. It's like a big present. So when you find out that there's people saying, oh no, there's something wrong with that, they have to change that. It's like, no, you don't have to change this. We don't want it changed that way. We want it to stay exactly as it is. And we really don't like it being threatened. Like, here's yet another industry, progressive Hollywood, wants to screw over because they just do not like classical traits of men shown in a positive light on screen and on television. So we can't have that happen. So that's what this whole show is about.
Yes.
We celebrate, we call it toxic males, but we're pretty much reclaiming that. We love those traditional values that are being demonized in men in Western media, but being celebrated in international media, especially in Indian film and television. So, folks, keep it up. Don't listen to these progressive nuts in Hollywood, because we love what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So that's going to wrap it up for this video here. Thanks so much, those of you who are watching this on Twitch. And thanks to those of you watching this on the video premiere on YouTube. Before we roll out, I have one question to ask you before we wrap up, before you tell people what you do and what you're doing.
Yeah.
I've had people ask, how did you get your name? Because when they see you and did a search on YouTube, the movie RRR came up with your name.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Well, I wanted a name that you had to use. You had to. I wanted a name that that sounded unique, but you had to use different muscles to pronounce it. So you have to roll your R's and you have to press your lips together to do the M sound. So it's So I wanted something that had a different expression to it. And I decided to go with this rather than to create a more recognizable name. And I don't know how long ago I created it, a few years ago, but it's unrelated to RRR. It is not related to it. Yeah, it's not related. Although I love RRR. I'm R. So
Mhm.
yes, and so I hope that answers their question.
Hope so, because we've had a couple folks ask that. I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask her. And ended up N64W expansion pack. Hello there.
I
So it's
love.
not Indian, but Water 2005 covers something like that. Oh,
Oh,
I'm gonna have to look that movie up eventually and find out what that's about.
absolutely.
So, mm, why don't you let the people know where they can find you and what you have coming up?
Yes, everybody. Of course, you can find me on my YouTube channel called Positive Fandom here on YouTube, but also on Twitch and on Odyssey. Usually on Wednesdays and Thursdays, you can find me on the 1/6 Scale Man Network or El Profesoro's channel on shows like Say What or Uncivilized Scoundrels. On Fridays, you can usually find me on Midnight's Edge in the afternoon at it's actually in the morning at 12. I
Mhm.
don't know if I'm going to be there tomorrow, guys. I'm going to try and make it, but you can usually find me streaming with Tom and Andre then. Friday nights, sometimes I stream with you, Lorena. When you do your anime streams that I have the privilege to be part of. Stone Ocean was the last thing that we were looking at the other day. Will we be looking at Stone Ocean tomorrow?
We will. We're actually going to be looking at 3 episodes because we're trying to get part 1 wrapped up before part 2 drops. Let me get to that.
Absolutely. And Friday and Saturday nights, I may also be streaming with Robert Meyer Burnett on the Post Geek Singularity on our show Midnight Musing. So definitely do check that out. On Saturday night, I have a watch party with Lorena. Is it Howl's Moving Castle,
It
Lorena?
is indeed Howl's Moving Castle, and we're going to have some folks joining us. So please do check that out. It's going to be great.
Oh, it's going to be wonderful. On Sundays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can always find me on my live show on my channel, Positive Fandom, called Sunday Brunch, where I do all the parlay
Yes.
in the fandom. Guys, please do check out Sunday Brunch. Stop by if you're a creator on YouTube or Instagram, whatever creation you make. Stop by and we will promote your work on the channel. And we also talk about what's going on in the fandom, everybody. So if you have
Mhm.
a gripe or want to share your feelings or concerns, do come on to Sunday Brunch, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. And certainly we want you to check that out. And that's all I have going on right now, Lorena.
Whew, she is a busy woman. Please do subscribe to her and watch her stuff because
Yes,
we're
please.
trying to get her monetized. As for me, let's see. It is a Thursday, so tonight I'm going to be on This Week in BS on Justin Proper's channel at 7 p.m. Eastern, and at 8:30 p.m. Eastern tonight, kicking off on my channel, the Babedom Menace is back. Your
Yes.
girls are back laughing at the nonsense going on in clown world and out there in the media, and just, your girls just kicking back, having a great time. Myself, Mary Mayhem, OG Star Wars, Heiress of Chaos, Mandy Summers. Hopefully, maybe she'll join us, and sit back, have a glass of wine, but be careful when you're drinking because we do make you laugh a lot on that show. So it is back to being on at night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Cannot wait for that to pop off. Tomorrow at 12 noon on Friday, the school lunch table show is finally back with myself and Fat Steven Seagal. We are going to be talking about the She-Hulk series. We're going to be talking about House of the Dragon that's supposed to be coming up. Some talk about the anime Tekken Bloodline, which is going to be premiering on Netflix in October. Probably talk a little bit of gaming news as well. Just that hour hit for lunch on a Friday where we just talk about what's going on in the fandom, what we're interested in, what's coming up, and just touch base with you guys. And of course, Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, over on Cena, we will have our continuing watch party of Stone Ocean, the part 6 installment of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So will be with me on that. On Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, I will be streaming live from the Magic Kingdom because Halloween has finally arrived. So we're going to have fun checking out Main Street USA and the castle area to see all of the amazing decorations that they've got going on over there. And of course, Saturday night, watch party, 7 p.m. Eastern on my channel, Howl's Moving Castle. Will be there for that. Sunday, of course, 1 p.m., the video replay of this stream here, Toxic Male Appreciation Streams. We have that at 1 p.m. Eastern. And at 8 p.m. Eastern is the Welcome to Florida show. Come check out just goodness. It's I never lack for material for that show. So myself, Culture Casino, we just laugh at just the craziest Florida shows. I mean, Florida stories, which are actually true. Very rare that they're not true, but they're pretty much all true. All the craziness. So just kick back, laugh, kick off your Sunday for the week. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up for this particular stream. Thank you so very much for being with us. We so appreciate your support of the show. Absolutely love the fact that you guys are here. And remember, you male stay freaking toxic because we love you like that. All right. Okay, everyone. We will see you next time. Bye.